The rain was coming down hard when Andre Hayes finally made it home. He had cold takeout in one hand, a headache behind both eyes, and a sink full of dishes waiting for him inside. Eli was already asleep. Andre had checked on him the moment he walked in, found the boy curled up tight with the nightlight on, a half-finished worksheet on the floor beside the bed. He'd pulled the blanket up, turned off the desk lamp, and closed the door quietly behind him. Now he was standing over the sink eating cold food at 10:30 at night, trying not to think about anything at all. He was almost done with the dishes when someone knocked on his door. He dried his hands and went to answer it. She was young, soaked through, holding a worn canvas bag against her chest. A complete stranger. She didn't cry, didn't beg, just looked at him with steady eyes and said, quietly but without flinching, "Let me stay. I'll cook and clean. I won't be any trouble." Andre's hand moved to close the door. Then she reached into her bag and held something out toward the porch light. A thin, silver bracelet. A name engraved along the inside of the band in small, careful letters. Danica Hayes. Andre went still. That bracelet had belonged to his sister. He hadn't seen it in 2 years, not since the funeral. He had never told a single person it existed. And this woman he had never met in his life was standing on his porch, in the rain, holding it like she knew exactly what it meant. He didn't close the door. If you've ever felt like you were holding everything together alone, this one's for you. Stay with me. Subscribe so you don't miss where this story goes. Andre Hayes was 38 years old and had not slept a full night in longer than he could remember. He worked maintenance at a mid-sized warehouse on the east side. Early shifts, sometimes doubles, the kind of job that didn't ask much of you beyond showing up and not complaining. He was good at both. He'd been doing it for 6 years, ever since Eli was small enough to carry on one arm, back when the arrangement had felt temporary and had quietly become his life. The house was a rental on Clement Street, a narrow 2-bedroom with a kitchen that got cold in winter and a back porch with a broken step he kept meaning to fix. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, his and Eli's, and Andre kept it the way he kept everything, functional, stripped down, nothing extra. Eli was 8, smart kid, quiet in the way that worried teachers but didn't always worry fathers because fathers sometimes confused quiet with fine. He did his homework without being asked. He ate whatever Andre put in front of him without complaint. He had learned somewhere along the way to take up very little space, and Andre hated that he hadn't noticed how early that had started. On the refrigerator, held up by a small magnetic letter E, was a grocery list in Danica's looping cursive. Milk, the good bread, those crackers Eli likes, written sometime before last winter, before everything. The ink had faded to a pale blue. Andre had never taken it down. He told himself it was because he never thought about it. That wasn't true. Danica had lived with them for almost 3 years before she got sick. She was Andre's younger sister by 7 years, and she had taken the second bedroom, taken over the kitchen, walked Eli to the bus stop on mornings when Andre had early shifts. She had made the house feel like a house. When she died, she took that feeling with her. Andre didn't talk about it. He kept moving, kept working, kept making sure Eli had clean clothes and food and someone to check his homework. He told himself that was enough. Most days he almost believed it. What he hadn't accounted for was Eli going quiet. It happened slowly, the way most things that matter happen, gradually and then all at once. Eli's teacher, Ms. Delaney, sent a message through the school app. Just wanted to flag that Eli's been a little withdrawn lately. Not disruptive, he's doing fine academically, but he's not really connecting with the other kids. Might be worth checking in. Andre read it on his lunch break, sitting in his truck. He read it twice. Then he put his phone face down on the seat and finished his sandwich. He didn't know what to do with information he didn't have the bandwidth to act on. That was the honest truth, and it sat in him like a stone. The night Renee appeared, the rain started around 8. Andre got home at 9:15. Eli had been asleep for a while. The boy had learned to manage his own bedtime on the nights Andre was late. Andre checked on him, saw the nightlight on and the worksheet half done on the floor, pulled the blanket up and went to the kitchen. He had just finished the dishes when the knock came. 3 times. Even. Not aggressive, not timid, just clear. He went to the door. He opened it. She was standing under the narrow overhang, as much out of the rain as 2 feet of ledge would allow, which wasn't much. Mid-20s. A canvas bag worn down at the straps, hair completely soaked. She was looking at him directly, not performing distress, not angling for sympathy, just looking. "Can I help you?" Andre said. "I'm not looking for money," she said. Her voice was calm, unhurried. "I need a place to stay. I can cook and clean, take care of the house. Whatever you need. I won't be any trouble." Andre looked at her for a long moment. His mind ran through the possibilities quickly and efficiently. She was a stranger. It was late. His son was asleep 30 feet away. Everything about this was a reason to close the door. "I don't know you," he said. "I can't help you." He started to push the door shut. "Wait." Not a plea, just a word, flat and serious. She reached into her bag and held something out toward the porch light. A thin silver bracelet, his sister's name engraved on the inside of the band. Andre's hand stopped on the door. "Where did you get that?" "She gave it to me," the woman said. "My name is Renee. I knew your sister before she passed. She asked me to find you. I know how that sounds. I know you don't have any reason to believe me." She paused. "But I kept my word. I'm here, and that bracelet is real." Andre stood in the doorway for a long time. From down the hall came the small sound of Eli shifting in his sleep. He looked at the bracelet one more time. Then he looked at Renee. "You got ID?" She handed over a state ID without hesitation. He looked at it. Renee Calloway. The address was out of state. He handed it back. He didn't let her in right away. He stood in the doorway for another full minute working through it. She could be lying. She could have found the bracelet somewhere, could have done her research, could be running an angle he hadn't figured out yet. People did worse for less. But the bracelet was real. He had searched for it after Danica passed and never found it. He had assumed it was lost. He had grieved it quietly, the way he grieved most things, alone, without telling anyone. There was no way to know that bracelet existed unless Danica had told her. "One night," he said finally, "you can tell me what you came to say, and then in the morning you find somewhere else to go. You don't go into any room but the living room. You don't touch anything that isn't yours, and you don't wake my son." "Okay," Renee said. "I mean it." "I know you do. I'm not here to cause problems." He stepped back and let her in. He gave her a thin blanket from the hall closet and pointed at the sofa. He locked his own bedroom door. He lay in the dark and listened to the rain and to the occasional small sounds from the living room. Renee settling in, the sofa shifting, and he did not sleep for a long time. When he finally did, it was shallow and restless. He woke at 6:15 to the smell of something cooking. He came down the hall, still half asleep, already forming what he was going to say, and stopped in the kitchen doorway. Renee was at the stove with her back to him, moving quietly. The sink was empty. The dishes from last night were done and stacked. The counter had been wiped down. The table was clear. Eli was sitting in his chair with a bowl of oatmeal in front of him, blueberries pressed into the top in a rough circle. He was eating. He was also talking. Not a lot, but talking, the way he used to before the quiet set in, narrating something that had happened at school like it actually mattered. Renee was listening, really listening, asking the small questions that kept Eli going. Andre stood in the doorway and watched his son eat a real breakfast and talk like a kid who still believed someone wanted to hear what he had to say. He didn't say anything. He just walked to the cabinet, pulled down a mug, and poured what was left of the coffee. It was still warm. She stayed. Not because Andre asked her to, but when the morning ended and Eli had to be walked to the bus stop and Andre had to leave for work, the logistics of making her leave that exact moment didn't work out, and he told himself that was the only reason he didn't press it. He'd deal with it when he got home. When he got home, the bathroom had been scrubbed. The pile of laundry he'd left on the dryer, clean but unfolded for 4 days, was folded and stacked on the hallway shelf. There was a pot of rice and chicken on the stove, simple and nothing fancy, and Eli was at the kitchen table doing homework, with his backpack hung on the right hook by the door. something Andre had been asking him to do for 2 months. "She showed me how to fold the fitted sheet," Eli said, not looking up. Andre set his keys on the counter. He looked around. He didn't say anything, but he didn't ask her to leave that night either. That was how the days started adding up. Renee moved through the house like someone who understood the difference between helping and intruding, at least at first. She kept to herself until Andre had his coffee. She didn't rearrange things without reason. She fixed what was broken only when it was practical. The cabinet door that wouldn't close, the strip of weatherproofing on the back door that had been peeling since September. Small things. The kind that pile up when one person is carrying a household alone. Eli started eating dinner at the table again instead of in front of the TV. He started talking during those dinners, not to Andre at first, but to Renee, in the sideways way kids talk when they're not sure they're allowed to want attention. Renee gave it to him without making a production of it. She just listened, asked questions, laughed at the right moments. Andre watched all of it and said very little. What he felt was not only gratitude. Underneath it was something tighter, something that felt almost like alarm. It was moving too fast. Eli was changing, and Andre hadn't authorized any of it. He'd just been too tired to stop it, and now here they were, weeks in, with Renee's canvas bag hanging on the hook next to Eli's backpack like it had always lived there. The night it came to a head was a Tuesday. Andre came home to find Renee at the kitchen table with Eli's blue hoodie in her lap, a needle and thread moving through a tear along the cuff. Eli was in the other chair, chin on his hand, explaining something about a kid at school who had the same hoodie in red. Something moved through Andre, sharp and sudden. "Hey," he set his bag down harder than he needed to. "Can I talk to you a second?" Renee set the hoodie on the table. Eli looked up. Andre told him to go wash up. When the boy was gone, Andre turned to Renee and kept his voice low and even. "You can't just do things like that." "Sew a seam?" she said. "It's not about the seam." He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "You're not family. You don't have the right to come in here and act like you are. Eli is starting to get used to you, and that's a problem, because you're not staying." Renee was quiet for a moment. She didn't apologize. She also didn't argue. "I hear you," she said. She picked the hoodie back up and set it aside, the mending half done. Andre went to the stove and served himself a plate and ate standing up. And the whole time that half-mended hoodie sat on the table, and he couldn't stop looking at it. It was a Thursday night when the larger truth came out. Eli had gone to bed early with a low fever. Nothing serious, just the kind of mild sick that settles on kids in late autumn. Renee had brought him water and a cool cloth without being asked. When Andre came to check on the boy, he found Eli already half asleep, the cloth folded neatly on the nightstand, his blanket pulled to exactly the right height. Andre stood in the doorway and felt the specific discomfort of someone who has been useful for a long time and is suddenly watching someone else do it better. He went to the kitchen. Renee was rinsing out the bowl. "You knew about the bracelet before you showed up," he said. "You knew about Danica, where we lived. How long were you planning this?" Renee dried her hands and turned around. She leaned against the counter and looked tired. Not defensive, just tired. The way people look when they've been carrying something heavy and they're finally close enough to put it down. "I wasn't planning it," she said. "I was working up to it. There's a difference." "Then tell me." She did. She had met Danica 4 years ago. Nothing dramatic, just circumstance. Renee had been in a bad stretch. No stable housing, burned through her savings, cut off from most people who'd known her before things went wrong. She'd been staying in a transitional shelter on Morrow Street when Danica came in as a volunteer. They'd talked. Danica kept coming back. Over several months, Danica had helped Renee find a room to rent, helped her get paperwork together, sat with her through the kind of nights that don't make sense to describe to someone who hasn't had them. "She didn't have to do any of that," Renee said. "She just did." Andre didn't say anything. About 6 months before she passed, she wrote me a letter. She told me she was sick. She'd been keeping it from me, I think because she didn't want me to feel like I owed her anything extra. Renee paused. "In the letter, she told me about you and Eli. She said she was worried about what would happen to you two after she was gone. She said—" Renee stopped, pressed her lips together. "She said you'd never ask anyone for help, that by the time you admitted you needed it, you'd already be drowning." The kitchen was quiet. Outside, wind pushed against the window over the sink. "She didn't tell me to come," Renee said carefully. "She asked me. She said if I ever got to a place where I could, to find you. Just check in. She wasn't asking me to fix anything, just to look." Andre's hands tightened on the edge of the counter. "She knew I'd hate it," he said. His voice came out flat. "Probably. Having someone come in and—" He stopped. "Yeah," Renee said quietly. "She mentioned that too." He turned and walked to the back door and stood looking out through the glass at the dark yard. He stood there a long time. Then, without planning it, he heard something from the kitchen behind him. A sound, low and half-melodic, the kind that slips out when a person thinks they're alone. Renee was rinsing the last dish and she was humming, barely audible, an old song, simple and slow. Andre recognized it before his brain had time to name it. It lived somewhere in his chest first. It was the same tune Danica used to hum when she put Eli to bed. The same one, note for note. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen and did not say anything. He walked to his room and sat on the edge of his bed in the dark, and he did not come back out that night. By the following week, he had made up his mind. He found Renee in the living room on a Saturday morning and told her, straight and without preamble, that he needed her to make arrangements to leave by the end of the week. He said it wasn't about anything she'd done wrong. He said he just needed his house back. He said it in a reasonable voice, and was almost proud of how reasonable it sounded. What he hadn't anticipated was Eli. The boy was in the hallway. Andre didn't see him there until it was already too late, until Eli had clearly heard enough, because when Andre turned around, Eli was standing just past the corner with mismatched socks and a face doing something terrible. "Why does she have to go?" Eli asked. His voice was small and carefully controlled, the voice of a child who has already been told not to make a scene. "Eli, is it because of me? Did I do something?" "No, come here, bud." "Then why?" The question cracked in the middle. "Why do people who are good to us always have to leave?" Andre had no answer. He stood in his own hallway and looked at his son's face and found, for the first time in a long time, that he had absolutely nothing to say. Renee appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked at Eli, then at Andre. Then she crouched down to the boy's level. "Hey, look at me. This is between me and your dad, okay? This is not about you. Not even a little bit." Eli pressed his mouth together and nodded, very small. "Go put your shoes on," Andre said quietly. "I'll take you to the park in a little while." Eli went. His door closed softly, deliberately softly, the restraint of a child who has learned that slamming things doesn't help. Andre and Renee stood in the hallway. Neither of them spoke. "I'll be out by Friday," Renee said. "Thank you." She went back to the kitchen. He heard a cabinet open and close, the small, ordinary sounds of someone who was still here and shortly wouldn't be. He stood in the hallway and looked at the hook by the door. Her bag was next to Eli's backpack. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he went to get his keys. It was Wednesday night, 2 days before she was supposed to leave, when Eli woke up struggling to breathe. Andre heard it through the wall, the tight, labored sound that had sent him to the ER twice before Eli was 5. He was across the hall before he was fully awake. Eli was sitting up in bed, hands gripping the blanket, chest heaving in that shallow, panicked rhythm. His eyes found Andre and held on. "It's okay, I've got you." Andre was already moving to the nightstand. The inhaler wasn't there. He checked the top drawer, moved the lamp, pushed aside a book. His hands were going faster than his brain. He'd seen the inhaler somewhere recently. He knew he had. He crossed to the dresser, checked the top, pulled the second drawer. Socks. A flashlight. Not here. "Dad." Eli's voice came out in pieces. I know, just—" The bedroom door opened behind him. Renee crossed the room without a word. 3 weeks earlier, during one of her first rounds of tidying, she'd found the inhaler wedged under the nightstand. knocked behind it, easy to miss. She'd set it in the small cabinet beside the bed and told Andre the next morning over coffee. Found Eli's inhaler under the nightstand. Put it in that little cabinet so it's easier to spot. Andre had said okay and gone back to his coffee and, in the way of exhausted people everywhere, had not actually filed that away. Renee opened the cabinet, reached in, came out with the blue and white inhaler. She shook it, crouched beside Eli, and guided him through it the way someone does when they've done it before. Calm, unhurried, counting the seconds out loud so the boy had something to hold on to. By the time Eli's breathing steadied, maybe 4 minutes had passed. He slumped back against his pillow, wrung out and embarrassed the way asthma always left him. "You're okay," Renee said. "Just breathe slow. You don't have to do anything." She smoothed the blanket up over him, turned off the overhead light so only the night light remained, and moved quietly toward the door. Andre stepped back to let her pass. She went out without looking at him. He lowered himself to the floor and sat with his back against the side of Eli's bed, knees up, hands loose between them. He stayed there a long time. He thought about the cabinet, about the fact that Renee had told him where the inhaler was, that he'd heard her and hadn't held on to it because he'd been running on empty for so long that small pieces of information just slipped through. He thought about how those slipped pieces had been adding up for 2 years, quietly, and Renee had been catching them without saying a word about it. He thought about Danica, about the way she used to know where everything in this house was. The scissors, the extra batteries, the particular band-aids that didn't pull too hard on kids' skin. Not because she was remarkable, because she had paid attention, because she had been present in all the small ways that don't look like anything until suddenly they're the only thing that matters. He had been so focused on keeping the house safe that he hadn't noticed someone had already been making it safer. He sat on the floor in his son's room until Eli was deep asleep. Then he got up, walked to the kitchen, and stood at the counter in the dark. The half-mended hoodie was folded on the chair where Renee had left it. She'd finished the stitching at some point. Small and even and invisible from the outside, exactly the kind of mending you'd only notice if you were looking for it. He set it back down. He didn't know what he was going to say, but he knew he couldn't wait until Friday. He didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table until 4 in the morning, not doing anything in particular, just sitting in the quiet of a house that had, somewhere in the last few weeks, stopped feeling like a waiting room. He couldn't pinpoint when it had happened. That was the part that bothered him most. It hadn't been one moment. It had been 100 small ones, accumulating without permission. He got up and looked at the refrigerator. At the grocery list in Danica's handwriting, the ink almost gone now, the letters barely readable. Milk, the good bread, those crackers Eli likes. He had looked at that note almost every day for 2 years and taught himself not to really see it, to let it sit at the edge of his vision like background noise. He looked at it now, really looked. She had known him in a way he didn't always like being known. She had seen through all the ways he held himself together and loved him anyway, never called attention to it, never made him feel pitied. She had just stayed, done the small things, kept the house alive around him while he worked and worried and refused to ask for help. And then she had found a way to keep doing it even after she was gone. He pulled out the letter. Renee had given it to him the night she told him everything. A single folded page, worn at the creases, Danica's handwriting in black ink. He had read the first few lines that night and put it away. He hadn't opened it since. He read it now. It wasn't long. Danica didn't waste words. She said she was sorry for not telling him sooner. She said she knew he was probably going to be angry about this, and she was sorry about that too, but not enough to not do it. She said she knew exactly what he was going to do after she was gone. Lock the door, keep his head down, tell himself Eli was enough reason to keep moving and that he didn't need anything else. "You've always been better at taking care of other people than letting them take care of you," she wrote. That was never a flaw, but it's going to become one if you let it. Renee is good people. She doesn't owe me anything and she knows that. If she shows up, it's because she wants to. Let her. And Andre, a house isn't a fortress. Stop guarding it like one. He folded the letter and set it on the table. At 6:30, there was a knock at the back door. Pastor Leon, his neighbor of 11 years, a man with a particular gift for appearing when things were bad without being able to explain how he knew. He came in, poured 2 cups from his thermos, and sat down like he'd been invited. They sat quietly for a moment, the way men of a certain understanding can. "She leaving Friday?" Leon said. "Word gets around. Heard it from Eli. Kid mentioned it to one of his friends at the bus stop. Boy was upset." Leon wrapped his hands around his cup. "You want to tell me what the holdup is?" Andre looked at the letter on the table. "I keep thinking that if I let this go the wrong way, if I let her in, let Eli get attached and then something happens, it'll be worse than if I'd just kept things the way they were." Leon took a sip. "And how were things? The way they were?" Andre didn't answer. Leon set his cup down and looked at him. "Protecting a home ain't the same as keeping love out of it," he said. "You've been doing one thinking it was the other." Andre looked out the window. The sky was going from gray to pale blue. He stood up and picked up his keys. "I need to go somewhere." Leon nodded and picked up his thermos. "I'll check on the boy." Renee was staying in a spare room at a friend's place, a woman named Gloria who lived 4 blocks away. Andre knew this because Renee had left the address on the kitchen counter when she'd started making arrangements to leave. He hadn't asked for it. She'd written it down anyway. He walked there. It was early and cold, and the neighborhood was just starting to come awake around him, and somewhere in those 4 blocks, he stopped rehearsing what he was going to say and accepted that he didn't have a script. He had never been good with scripts. Gloria opened the door, looked at him, said nothing, and pointed down the hall. Renee was in the small sitting room at the end, her canvas bag on the floor beside her, a cup of tea going cold on the side table. She was looking out the window. She turned around when he came in. He stood in the doorway. "I'm not good at this," he said. "I know," she said, not unkind, just honest. He came in and sat on the edge of the chair across from her. He put his elbows on his knees and looked at the floor for a moment. "I've been tired for a long time," he said. "Not just the job, the other kind. The kind where you wake up and you're already behind." He paused. "After Danica went, I told myself I was managing. And I was. But there's a difference between managing and actually being okay, and I didn't let myself think too hard about which one I was doing." Renee was quiet. "Last night, when Eli couldn't breathe, I tore that room apart looking for the inhaler, and you walked in and went straight to it." He shook his head. "You told me where you put it. I just didn't hold on to it, because I've been running on empty so long that things just slip through." He looked up. "That's not your fault, that's on me. But it made me realize how much I'd been missing without knowing I was missing it." "That wasn't a competition," she said carefully. "I know that. That's not what I mean." He sat back. "I mean, I've been so focused on not needing anybody that I didn't notice I already needed you. And I almost sent you away because I was scared of what that meant." Renee looked at him for a long moment. "I need you to know something," she said. "I didn't come here because I felt obligated. I had a long time to sit with Danica's letter. I almost didn't come. Almost decided it wasn't my place." She paused. "I came because I wanted to. Because when I got here and saw how Eli ate cereal alone for dinner and how you fell asleep on the couch in your work clothes, I wanted to stay. That had nothing to do with a debt." "I know that now." "I'm not trying to replace her," Renee said. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it wasn't. "I couldn't. I wouldn't want to. She was—" She stopped. "She was the kind of person who changes the shape of things. You don't replace that. You just try to carry it forward." Andre nodded slowly. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then he said it, the thing he'd walked 4 blocks in the cold to say, plain and without decoration. "I don't need a maid. I need someone who means it when they stay." He held her eyes. "She knew that," he said. "That's why she sent you." The room was very quiet. Renee's face let go of something it had been holding for a long time. Her eyes filled, not dramatically, just steadily. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth for a moment. "Okay," she said. It came out rough around the edges. "Okay," he said. He didn't reach for her hand. She didn't move toward him. They just sat in the quiet for a while. Two people who had been through enough to know that some things didn't need to be rushed. "Come back," he said. "No big promises, no pretending it's simple. Just come back." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Yeah," she said. "Okay." The following Saturday morning, Eli woke up before 7 and came padding into the kitchen to find two adults already there. Andre was at the counter with coffee. Renee was at the stove turning eggs in the pan. Toast already up, a small pot of grits working low on the back burner. The kitchen smelled like butter and black pepper, and the particular warmth of a room where someone has been cooking for a while. Eli stopped in the doorway in his socks, looked at Renee, and then looked at his father. Andre raised his mug slightly, a small acknowledgement. Eli went to his chair and sat down. They ate. Eli talked about a school project, something involving a map of the United States and a set of colored pencils he'd apparently needed for 2 weeks and was only now mentioning. Renee said she'd seen the right kind at the drugstore on 5th. Andre said they'd go after lunch. It was ordinary, remarkably completely ordinary. After Eli finished eating, he pushed his plate back and looked around the kitchen, at the clean counter, at Renee setting the pan in the soak, at his father reaching past her to refill his coffee without having to think about where the pot was. "It feels different here now," Eli said. Not to anyone in particular, just said it, the way kids say things that are true, without drama, because it hasn't occurred to them yet that the truth needs to be protected. Andre looked at Renee. She had her back to him, rinsing the pan. But he saw it. The small shift across her shoulders, the way her head tilted slightly, the corner of her mouth that curved up before she could stop it. He looked at the refrigerator. Danica's note was still there, the ink almost gone, the letters barely holding on. He had left it up for 2 years because he hadn't known how to take it down. He looked at it now and felt something he hadn't expected. Not grief, not the low, familiar ache. Something closer to gratitude. Something that felt, quietly, like an answer. He drank his coffee. Outside, the morning was clear and cold, and going on without asking anyone's permission, the way mornings do. Eli was already moving on, the map project abandoned in favor of a story about a kid at school who'd brought a lizard in his backpack and the general chaos that followed. Renee turned from the sink and leaned against the counter with a dish towel over her shoulder, listening. She started to laugh, a real one, unprepared, the kind that arrives before you can shape it into something polite. Andre watched her. Then quietly, so no one made anything of it, he smiled too. They don't always look like they're drowning. Sometimes they look like a man who keeps the house clean, shows up to work every day, and makes sure his kid eats. Sometimes strength and loneliness wear the exact same face. Danica didn't send Renee to fix Andre. She sent her because she knew her brother, knew that he would hold the door shut with both hands and call it protecting his family. And sometimes, the most loving thing someone can do for you is find a quiet way past that door. Not every home needs saving, but every home needs warmth. And warmth isn't weakness. It's the thing that makes all the holding on worth it. Here's something nobody really talks about. There's a specific kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. It's the tired that comes from holding everything together. The bills, the groceries, the school pickups, the late nights, all of it, alone. And the longer you carry it, the more you start to believe that asking for help is a weakness, that needing someone is a risk you can't afford. Andre believed that, for years, and it almost cost him everything. Not his house, not his job, something quieter than that. The warmth in his son's laugh, the feeling of walking through his own front door and actually wanting to be there. The thing is, Andre wasn't wrong to be careful. Life had given him real reasons to keep people at a distance. But there's a line between protecting yourself and slowly disappearing inside your own walls. And most of us don't notice when we've crossed it. Maybe you know someone like Andre. Maybe you are him. Maybe you've been carrying something heavy for so long that it just feels normal now. Maybe you've told yourself you're fine, and maybe you almost believe it. If that's you, this story was for you. Because the bravest thing Andre did wasn't holding his family together alone for all those years. It was standing on someone's porch at 6 in the morning, unable to say the right words, and showing up anyway. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just showing up. Just letting someone in. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe, hit the bell. We'll be here. Take care of each other.